Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome back Stacy Funt. She is a radiologist and the founder of LH Adventure Travel, which is a boutique wellness adventure travel company. Today's Kevin MD article is Why Immersive Travel May Be a Powerful Tool for Behavior Change. Stacy, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here.
All right. So I know it's been a few years since you last were on. So just again, briefly reintroduce yourself to my audience and then talk about why you decided to share this particular article on Kevin MD.
Yes, thanks a lot. So I'm a radiologist. I've been part-time for a long time now, per diem. About 14 years ago, I went back for health coaching. And a little over 3 years ago, I put my lifelong love of travel together with health coaching, and I formed a wellness adventure travel company. And it's predominantly women. We have one couples trip a year, otherwise it's all women. And we travel around the globe incorporating components of lifestyle medicine. So we have movement, we have time for managing stress, we eat well. There's always a food component, but the biggest part to me is really building the community on the trips. And so it's been amazing. I've hosted many trips now, more than 10 trips I've personally hosted. Now I have other people hosting trips with me. And I decided to write this article because I started to see so many powerful transformations, much more than I did when I was working as a health coach for me personally. And I saw the impact that travel has to really change our core identity. And that's what I think is the biggest driver of behavior change when we have identity change. And so that's what inspired me to write the article.
All right. And the people who go on your trip, can you tell us a little bit what they do? Are they all physicians? Do they span the spectrum of professions? And what are some of the reasons they decide to go on your trips?
Yeah, so it's not all physicians. I do have a lot of physicians. I'd say maybe like 60%, 65%. It depends on the trip, some a bit more. But they're all curious women. Most women, I'd say it's 40s through late 60s. Anyone can come. There's not an age limit. I say that so that a 25-year-old knows we're not running up Kilimanjaro,
Mm.
but these are active trips. They're moderately active. So we hike, we e-bike the hills of Tuscany, we kayak on the lake in Guatemala, we're hiking in Bhutan, we're, doing all sorts of things. And I think people choose adventures for many different reasons. And some of the women, and again, I do have one couples trip a year, but I'll speak mainly about the women. Some of the women come because none of their friends or their partner likes to do what they do, right? Or sometimes they just want time away with a group of women. There's a very special chemistry and a special magic to me that happens when like-minded women, I know that word's overused, but like-minded women do go on an adventure together. They're curious, they're open-minded, they're excited, they're moved by nature because all of our trips have natural immersion in them, and they want to move their bodies. Again, it's moderate movement, but this is adventure travel where we're willing to get a little out of our comfort zone for like the big 10 wow moment, that like awe factor that sometimes you have to go a little bit further to get.
All right. In your article, you talk about behavior change and how this immersive travel can lead to that. So delve deeper into your article for those of you who get a chance to read it and maybe give us some examples of what you mean by this behavior change.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So really the crux of the article is that immersive travel can help support identity because we pretty much act according to who we think we are. If I think I'm a runner, I'm going to run. If I think I'm like lazy and a couch potato, I'm pretty much going to stay on the couch. It will be much more of a struggle. So when we have an identity shift to someone that we believe we are, that's more in alignment with how we want to act, we're much more likely to be that. So the article really talks about how immersive travel creates opportunities for this identity shift. And there are certain factors like awe, right? Being in awe actually biologically, it can open us up to an identity shift. How novelty, our experience of the world, and I can go more into detail because actually it's fascinating, but awe, novelty, being in a supportive group, having meaningful, challenging goals, having like what we call a temporal landmark, when a trip acts as a before and after. A lot of people, when I get home from, I'm going to start, it's very easy to change behavior. Just having our habitual habits disrupted because we're now in a completely new environment. It's really easy to get attached to staying on our phone and coming home and going on the couch or whatever, but you go to this whole new environment, it's much, much easier to start different behaviors. And then when you're with a group of people doing them, when other people start to see you differently, it's much easier to have these identity shifts. So, for example, and I could give you so many examples, Kevin. It's just so fun to watch. But I do mention two in particular in the article, and I have so many more. But like one woman in particular who is a physician, she had a benign brain tumor resected, and it left her with residual deficits. And she was in physical therapy for a very long time. It was life changing for her. She gave up her practice. It was a really big deal. And she contacted me that she wanted to go on one of the trips. And we talked when she first contacted me. I had some concerns because, these are like we'll hike for 3, 4 hours in one day. It's not over the top, but they are active. And she thought she could do it. It was a big goal for her. She'd been working for it. And I said, okay, come, we'll just hire a separate guide for you just in case, and she did amazing. And she was like the front of the pack. She really did amazing. She had her hiking sticks with her to help with balance. And she was so inspirational to everyone. And, when she first came on the trip, I felt like she saw herself as someone in physical therapy getting over this catastrophic event.
Mm.
And by the end, this was a longer journey. By the end of the trip, she was a hiker. She was like front of that pack. Like she was no longer the post-operative patient. She was in that next chapter of her life. And I've seen that with so many people. I have women who come on the trip. I mean, some people just come from a good time. There's no
Mhm.
transition at all. Others are thinking of changing jobs, or they're going through a divorce, or I do get quite a few empty nesters. The kids have gone off to college, and now what do I do? It's time to like discover what brings me joy and who I am again, and start giving to myself. And so that's some of the examples. And I see women like find their power and find their strength. And I feel like when you find that, it's a lot easier to be who you want to be, and behave the way you want to behave, and take care of yourself the way you want to take care of yourself.
So I'm hearing that a lot of women predominantly on your trips, they may come from similar positions, right? And they have that sense of belonging because they may be overcoming whatever obstacles that they need to. And now on this trip, they have that shared sense of belonging, and that makes them more prone to take risks, right? Try new things. And that in itself, that sense of belonging in itself can, of course, lead to identity and behavior change.
You are 100% correct. I just came back 2 days ago. I just took a group to the Southwest Utah, Lake Powell, and we
Mm.
were kayaking and hiking in Horseshoe Bend and Antelope Canyon. And, some of it was really windy. It was choppy water part of it, and it was challenging. And it's so easy to, and it was spectacular. I mean, if you've been to that region of the world, it's pure magic. It really is. And these women, they were amazing, all of them, and they formed such a tight bond. And some struggled more than others, on the windy day, and the kayaking it was tough. And everybody was so supportive of each other, and they got so much strength from each other. And, we all felt so good as a group at the end, like we did it, and in the end, we went on this magnificent hike with the Red Mountains, and it was such a peak moment for so many, and it was a shared peak moment, and that amplifies it by 10. It really does.
You mentioned that about 60% of your clients are physicians. And as you know, and you're a physician yourself, it's a very difficult practice environment currently, right? And we talk a
Yes.
lot
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
physician burnout.
Yeah.
Now, are there any stories that you could share with us about maybe a burnt out physician going on one of your immersive trips and maybe having some type of identity or behavior change that helped them professionally going forward after the trip?
Well, I can just tell you what they share after. We have a WhatsApp group, a private WhatsApp group, and trips from 2 years ago, women still share in it. The group really bonds a lot. And Like some of them, I have a Nepal Bhutan trip coming up. The second one, it's like 80% physicians on that one, so it's very varied. But one in particular that comes to mind, not too long ago, we had a woman who was struggling in her practice. Her practice was bought out by a system, and she was struggling to make peace of what she wanted to do and where she belonged. And it was a real, how do I put this? She was really at a crossroads of deciding what she wanted to do. I hate to give this example because, she decided to leave. So I'm not saying that's the answer to burnout. There are definitely ways to stay, and she was at a different part of her career, but it was a really hard decision for her. And a few months after, a while after we got back, she had shared that just getting time away and being able to reflect, and she was in a position where she could leave. It was
Mhm.
more holding on to that identity of being a physician. Sometimes it's a financial decision, right? That was not the decision. It was a lifelong career and an identity and the fear of the unknown and what comes next. And she took a lot of risks on our adventure. And she shared in our group that that started her on a new path, which was just so amazing. And the whole group was like doing fireworks all over in the WhatsApp because they were just excited for her. Other people will choose to stay. It doesn't matter, but she made her decision of what she needed to do to create peace rather than staying in that undecided, miserable, stuck feeling, because that is a miserable feeling. When you're not good where you are and you just can't decide what to do from there, and you feel helpless. Victimhood is never a positive feeling. So, but I've had women talk about the stress of malpractice cases and speak very honestly about that because, once you get sued, you're not supposed to talk about it. And,
Yeah.
people don't really discuss that. And that was like this couple of years ago, a really powerful moment of a real emotional release and the compassion from everyone else in the group, physicians and non-physicians. The pure compassion I felt was so healing for her. I did. And there are many examples. It's one thing to just go on a vacation. You could be burnt out and you could feel tired and you could just like go to Florida for a week or whatever, or the Caribbean. And then you're going to come back to all the same problems, thinking about it all the same ways. It's a totally different experience to go away and then see your life in a different way.
Mm.
Like to me, that's what helps. That's what helps. Sure, taking a break can recharge, but then you're going back right into that same mindset, those same thoughts, that same depleting experience for yourself. And again, it doesn't mean you're going to leave at all, but it might mean deciding to look at something differently, deciding to approach life differently, deciding to boundaries, deciding to take care of yourself differently, like whatever it is. So I think that's such a big thing when we can totally step out. And that's why, like half the women come alone on my trip. Some people come with one friend. I never have more than like four people who know each other because I don't want
Mhm. Yeah.
eight besties and then, two people. But so it's pretty much half and half. It depends on the trip. So to completely step away and go into the complete unknown, like come to Tanzania and be in the Maasai tribe and you're not thinking about anything at home whatsoever. And when you get so immersed in nature, walking just in the Andes, on the Inca Trail or wherever we may be, when you get, or like just being in the dunes in Morocco, when you're so immersed in these completely magnificent environments,
Mm.
it just like opens up your soul. It like connects you. Like for me, and I've seen it for so many people, it connects me to my authentic self. It gets me back to the core of who I am and what I want and what direction I want to be walking in. And so it's a really good reset to kind of reassess, am I going in the direction I want to be? And maybe where do I need to go while you're having this amazing time,
Mm.
and being supported by these wonderful people.
Now, I know it's impossible to compete with these exotic adventures at home, but are there elements of these trips that people can apply at home? Some of these identity shifting conditions, can they replicate some of those at home based on some of the characteristics that you've seen from these trips?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the in the article, at the end of the article, I give very concrete things that you could do because not everybody, I couldn't do this when my kids were younger, right? Not or I mean, have the finances or their time or the desire, not everyone can get in a plane, but there's so much we can do once we just keep in our consciousness this idea of identity change and how do I want to be seeing the world, right? Like, once I started learning more about this and intentionally tried to start creating change, I would I walk my dog every morning. Normally I would just walk and come back and I would be on an awe hunt. Just look for those moments of awe or beauty on the walk with my dog. When I notice, oh, the flowers are coming out, or oh, look at the way that the sun is setting, and like just taking intentionally looking for those moments, or the idea of a temporal landmark, right? I can use a Monday as a temporal landmark, right? They just make it easier to create behavioral change shifts. I can create temporal landmarks whenever I want. Memorial Day weekend can be my temporal landmark or whatever it is. So to take advantage of things that make it a little bit easier, meaningful goals. For me, I don't get to the gym easily. I don't. I'm not one of those. A lot of people in lifestyle medicine naturally are like that. I'm not. I need fear of getting stuck on a mountain, to get me to train. But it doesn't have to be Peru. I live on Long Island. I can go hiking an hour away.
Mhm.
So if we find our own personal goals that need a little bit more work to get to them, it becomes a lot easier to do some of the hard work of taking care of ourselves that feels so mundane, when it's attached to something that we want, or even like novelty. You know, I can create novelty like just taking another way to work, or, I can explore a new park or a new restaurant, or just being intentional about bringing these elements into my life that I know actually affect my brain.
We're talking to Stacy Funt. She's a radiologist and the founder of LH Adventure Travel, which is a boutique wellness adventure travel company. Today's Kevin MD article is Why Immersive Travel May Be a Powerful Tool for Behavior Change. Stacy, as always, let's end with some of your take home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
Thanks so much, Kevin. So, if I had to do take home messages, I would say we're so much more powerful than we believe. And sometimes we just need a little support or something else to change the way we're looking at it. Whether it's a trip across the globe or, a walk around our block, when we start to just allow ourselves to see the world differently, our whole life can change.
Stacy, as always, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and insight. And thanks again for coming back on the show.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.